Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. It is going to be my October TBR. September was the first month I ever did a TBR, so this will be my second month ever. And I had so much fun with it in September. I was a little bit hesitant because I am someone who I feel like mood reads quite a bit. So I was worried I was gonna feel like stuck to like this list that I had chosen for myself, but I will say I was still able, like I feel like I had a good variety of books that I was still able to kind of mood read, but it also gave me like direction and also like an achievable goal, if you will, towards the amount of books that I wanted to read in September. I read 10 books in September and I believe I had 13 books on my TBR, so I was actually really proud of that. I was not thinking I was going to do that well. Today I have a longer list of, I believe, 15 books. Plus, I have the Addicted series second book coming my way, but I ordered it off Amazon and it's not supposed to get to me until October 18th. It's the book Ricochet, and I'm so excited to read that book. I'm going to read that the moment it arrives to me in the mail, so that's not on, like I don't have the physical book with me, but I do plan to read that in October. And then I also have my 3 carryover books from my September TBR. So if you're interested in seeing the books that I'm hopeful to read in October, the books on my TBR, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like bookish content, I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. I also have a beauty channel, which I'll leave linked below if you like makeup and beauty content. I do a lot of project pans over there. But other than that, let's jump into my October TBR. Okay, briefly before we get into each book, I do just want to say I do feel like I'm still kind of like learning my favorite book genres. I have gotten much more into reading again this year, and more specifically even within the last couple of months, and I feel like I'm still like dipping my toes in different book genres, so I'm really trying to figure out like what works for me and what doesn't. The one book category or book genre that I am like most scared of is like suspenseful thrillers, just because I don't know, I'm terrified of them. Like thriller books, if it's like too scary, that I just don't feel like it'll work for me. Other than that, I'm still like, again, dipping my toes in everything and kind of figuring out what I love. I have realized I love a good character driven story. Like when there is just like a lot of character development and I feel really connected to the characters, that's when I find myself loving a book the most. And then final note before we get into it, I am currently reading The Final Gambit, so the third book in the, why am I blanking on the name? So the third book in the Inheritance Game series. It's in my car and I was too lazy to go grab it, but that is a book I should have complete, honestly, by the end of the day. I've been a little bit slower reading that one than I have the previous 2 books. Love the series and just wanted to finish the series because I have so many other series that I'm wanting to start or have started reading, and I don't want to start too many series and be confused by the series, if that makes sense. That being said, let's finally get into this TBR. So we can start with the 3 books that are carryover. So I had mentioned in my September TBR that prior to this, like after graduating college, I found myself mostly reading biographies, self-improvement, self-development, memoir books, like a lot of nonfiction, and that worked for me for a while. Not that I was reading a lot of books per year, but I've been super into fiction, and that's been what's like driving me to continue to read. So I wanted to still try and read like one either biography, memoir, or like self-improvement book, if you will, per month. I didn't complete that task in September because, again, I'm really trying to dip my toes in a bunch of different genres and was having so much fun with my fiction books that I didn't finish this very tiny book. This is Make Your Bed by William McRaven, and I am going to carry this over into my October TBR. I believe this is like 113 pages. Maybe it's 125 pages, but it's like, this is what, it's tiny. So I'm hoping to read this in October, and then like looking to the future into like 2023, I am hopeful that I will continue to read one memoir, biography, self-help book every single month, just because I do find them very interesting as well. I do really want to read I'm Glad My Mother Died by, why am I blanking on the name? You guys know what I'm talking about. It's all the rage. But I feel like I just need to read this little guy first because I have such a big TBR for the rest of October anyway. And then the other two books that are carryover, I was really surprised about this one because Taylor Jenkins Reid is my favorite author, but I was really invested into all of the other books that I was reading in September that I didn't get around to this one. This is in Maybe in Another Life. I would like to carry this one over as well. And I did purchase After I Do, but I don't have this on my October TBR. I do want to get through Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist so that I can do a video like ranking all of my favorite books by her, or ranking all of her books. But Maybe in Another Life I am going to carry over. It sounds like a really interesting book, basically about like how your life can be altered like pending like the smallest decision that you make. I'm not going to get super in depth on this because I talked about it in my September TBR, but I'm going to carry that one over. I don't know if I'll get to this or not. Like if I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it, but I don't necessarily know that this fits. Like I know it's spooky season. I don't have a ton of mystery slash thrillers, but I do have a lot of books that kind of are giving me like fall-ish vibes, you know what I mean? And I don't know if this one is going to be one I'm in the mood for. And ultimately, like even if something is not on my TBR, but I'm more in the mood for that book, I'm going to read that book so I don't fall into like a reading slump. So that's going to be a carryover. And then my final carryover is Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Myers Sane. I feel like this is a perfect fall read. Like the atmosphere is all fall. It's about a town in Louisiana that's like the psychic capital of the world. There's a murder there and like you get the vibe. Atmosphere sounds very fall to me. I believe this is YA. I just was not in the mood to read this at all in September. For some reason, I just like, you know when you just like have a vibe that a book maybe isn't gonna be like for you. And if a book isn't for me, like I don't feel like I'm capable of DNFing a book. Like I feel like I have to finish it even if I've only read like 20 pages and I'm like, this isn't for me. So I don't know, there's like this fear of me, for what reason I'm really not sure, that this is gonna put me into like a reading slump, but like that's just me in my head. Anyway, those are the books that are carryover from my last TBR, and then this is my October TBR. We can start with these two on the end. So The Bodyguard, this is my first book of the month book. I believe this was the either July or August book of the month. Everybody was raving about this. I signed up for book of the month, and rather than choosing a September, like one of the picks from September, I chose this as my first book. It is about a female bodyguard and a romance between her and her client. It just sounds like a really cute read, and I love to sprinkle. I found I like romance, but I have to like sprinkle them in. I definitely prefer like a romance subplot to a pure rom-com. Like I feel like I can only read like one or two strictly romance books per month, but I don't know if this is like pure romance. I'm pretty sure it is, but this is gonna be on my list. I'm very excited about that one because I feel like I've heard nothing but good things about that book. And then I feel like I have heard everybody raving about Alice Feeney's book, Rock, Paper, Scissors. And I'm just so incredibly excited, yet nervous to read this because this is a thriller. I'm hoping it's not like too thrilling to the point where I'm scared, but it is about a married couple that go on like a weekend getaway, or they go on a getaway. And while they're on this getaway, they learn secrets about each other. I have heard that every single chapter, there's like a twist and turn in every chapter. It's super fast paced, etc. So I'm very excited to read this. And if I like this, then I do want to pick up Daisy Darker from the same author, or I'd be interested in exploring more from this author. But I want to dip my toes in this to see if it's like a good amount of thrilling for me or if it's too much. If you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments below. But I'm very excited about this one because I've heard, again, nothing but good things about this book. Okay, and then before we get into this stack, as you can see over here, I have all three of the Magnolia Parks books. And part of me is like, should I really have purchased all three in the series before reading the first book in the series? But I feel like this is just gonna be like my vibe. There's a part of me that's like afraid to start this because I feel like in my heart of hearts, I like want this to be like my new favorite series of all time, or my new favorite books, etc. And I'm like, and a part of me thinks I'm gonna love them so much that I'm like afraid that like I don't want to be done with them, but I also know that this series is like very polarizing. It seems to be like you either love it or you hate it. I am personally like the literal queen when it comes to toxic relationships, like the queen. So I feel like I personally am gonna love this series and I'm very excited for it. If you are sleeping under a rock and you haven't heard of this series, it's basically, to my understanding, like the London based version of Gossip Girl. Follows a very toxic relationship and it just sounds like a great time. The second book, Daisy Hates, is like a mafia romance. I've never read a mafia romance, but that's what I've heard people say. Very excited for that. And then there is book number 3, which is The Long Way Home, which is a continuation in the Magnolia Parks part of the series. And I've heard that there are going to be 7 total books in this series, so I'm very excited for it. I have all 3 books on my TBR for October. I don't know if I'll want to read them straight or if I'll want to give myself a break, but I thought I would just include them all in here because I was wanting to do like a reading vlog of the series as well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm very excited to read that series. So then these are the rest of the books that I have on my TBR. Up first, I have this book. This is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. And I just picked this up because it was like right when I was getting really passionate and into reading and I wanted some like fall books, if you will. And this was on a table in Barnes & Noble. I felt like it had a very fall vibe to it. Even like reading the back of this, I'm like, I don't really understand what this is about, so I don't even know how to like explain or describe. I'll read the back to you guys about this one because I'm like, I can't even shorten this. So it says, all her life Annie has played it nice and safe. After becoming unceremoniously dumped by her longtime boyfriend, she seeks a fresh start. She accepts a new teaching position and moves from Manhattan to a small village upstate. She's stunned by how perfect and picturesque the town is. The people are friendly and warm. Her new apartment is dreamy too, aside from the oddly persistent spider infestation. Then Annie meets Sophie, beautiful, charming, magnetic Sophie, who takes a special interest in Annie and wants to be her friend. More importantly, she wants Annie to stop apologizing and start living for herself. That's how she lives. Annie can't help but gravitate toward the self-possessed Sophie and begins to spend more time with her despite the fact that the rest of the townsfolk seem a little afraid of her. And like, okay, there are some things. Sophie's appearance is uncanny and ageless. Her mansion is in the middle of the woods and feels a little bit unearthly. And she does seem to wield a certain power. But she couldn't be. Could she? I literally have no idea if I'm gonna love or hate this book, but it's gonna be on my list. I feel like it is like witchy vibes, like a good October read, if you will. Then I also picked up the Lost, why can I never pronounce this word? Is it apothecary? I hope that's right. Like, I promise, even though like I can't like say these words maybe in the right way out loud, like I can read and digest a book. So this is about an apothecary shop that sells these poisons to women who are like, who can use them against men in their lives. This is in the 18th century. There's this 12-year-old girl, Eliza, who comes into the shop, forms a bond with Nella, who is the shop owner. They have this unexpected bond which sparks a string of consequences that echoes through centuries. So then 200 years later, aspiring historian Caroline is running from her own demons when she discovers a clue to London's long unsolved apothecary mystery. Caroline's upended present soon collides with an explosive history, binding her fate to Nella and Eliza's in a stunning twist that transcends the barrier of time. I've heard really good things about this book. It sounded like a great time of the year to read this book, and it just sounded like fun and interesting. Like, it sounded unlike anything else that I've ever read, so I'm excited to see what I think of that. Okay, and then I've never read any of Tessa Bailey's romance rom-com books. I did purchase It Happened One Summer, but I also purchased My Killer Vacation by her because I felt like this would be like a great time of year to read this book because of the killer aspect. I'm like, but then there's also like vacation. Like, should I have waited to read this on vacation. It also looks like a shorter book, so I felt like this would be a perfect book to add in with like this longer TBR. The setting is Cape Cod, which like I'm all about. I think this is dual POV. It's about a girl and her brother that go on vacation. They find a corpse in their rental home, and then a bounty hunter is there and like doesn't want the help from the main character, the girl in the story, and I assume there's romance that ensues. I don't know. I haven't really read the back of this even, so I'm not 100%, like I'm going in like a little bit blind, but I'm really excited about this one, and I have a feeling I'll be reading this in the next few days. So then I have from L. Kennedy, I have the first 2 books in the Off-Campus series. This is a series that I have heard raved about, and I'm just super excited about it. I believe each of the 4 books follows a different couple. So I have The Deal as well as The Mistake. It is a sports romance, hockey themed, which hockey isn't like necessarily my top sport, but I can get down with it. I live in the state of Minnesota. We're like the hockey state, so I feel like I should be all about hockey. And normally I feel like I would only put the first book in the series on like in my TBR, but I had both books, so I figured if I can knock 2 out in this month, that would be great. But I would be proud of myself for even just getting through 1. Very, very excited about that one. I heard like the spice in this is pretty decent as well, which I'm all about. Very excited for this. So this is also a series. I believe it's a 3-part series, and I have the first book here. It is Finley Donovan is Killing It. From my understanding, it's about this like single mom. I believe she's either a movie producer or a writer, and she's in this cafe on the phone with like her agent talking about either like an upcoming movie or a book. Again, I'm not reading the back. I kind of want to go into this blind, but I've heard other people talk about this. And while she's in this cafe, this other woman overhears her and thinks that she is like a hit woman, and the 2 of them form a connection or a friendship because the woman that overhears the conversation wants to hire her to kill her husband. And I just feel like this sounds like such a good time. I'm not gonna lie, the pink cover and just like the cover in general I think is also very cute. This sounds like a book where it's like not going to be super scary, but like also has to do with like a murder, like possibly like a cozy mystery type of situation, which just feels like something I should like, I can ease my way into thrillers with something like this. Do you know what I mean? So then next up I have this one, which is Payback is a Witch. This I picked up again as I was just starting to like buy books to support my reading passion. This says Emily Harlow is a witch, but not a very powerful one, in part because she hasn't been home to her magical town of Thistle Grove in years. Her self-imposed exile has a lot to do with a complicated family history and a desire to forge her own way in the world, and only the tiniest bit to do with Gareth Blackmore, heir to the most powerful magical family in town and casual breaker of hearts and destroyer of dreams. But when a spellcasting tournament for which her family serves as arbiters, I can read, approaches, it turns out the pull of the tradition is strong enough to bring Emmy back. She's determined to do her familial duty, spend some quality time with her best friend, Lyndon, and then get back to her real life in Chicago. On her first night home, Emmy runs into Talia, an all-around badass adept in the darker magic arts who is fresh off of a bad breakup with Gareth Blackmore. Talia had let herself be charmed, only to discover that Gareth was also seeing Lyndon, unbeknownst to either of them, and now she and Lyndon want revenge. Only one question stands: is Emmy in? But most concerning of all, why can't Emmy stop thinking about the terrifying component, devastatingly gorgeous, wickedly charming Talia? Okay, this actually sounds really fun. I'm excited for that. I was like, actually, like, I don't even know what this is about. I think I just, again, saw this on like a table at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, oh, perfect. This is a great fall read. That actually sounds really great. And then next up I have the first book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. I'm super, super excited about this. I feel like I've heard nothing but good things. This is about 2 twin sisters. One of them is murdered. So Amelia sets out to find her sister's killer and to seek vengeance at any cost, even if it means using dark magic that's been long forbidden. Yes, just yes. Everything about this Yes, so I'm hoping that I love this. I believe this is YA, so hopefully it'll read a little bit quicker, but I'm very excited to start this series. All right, and then here are the final 2 books that I have on my October TBR. First, I have Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, who is the author of Mexican Gothic. I thought about buying Mexican Gothic, but then this cover honestly spoke to me more, which is truly why I purchased this. Like, don't judge a book by its cover, but like, I judge every book by its cover. This is set in Mexico in the 1970s, dangerous country. There's like a mystery to be solved. I love like stories about like Mexican drug cartels and stuff like that too. I'm so excited about this. I feel like this is gonna be such a fun book. Hopefully I like it. I feel like it got mixed reviews on Goodreads, but this is another like shorter book, so hopefully I can get through that one quickly. The vibe and the atmosphere of this just felt like it was like the perfect time to read this book in October, so that's why I included it in my October TBR. And then finally, I have the first book in the Ever After or Never After series. This is Hooked by Emily McIntyre, and I've heard that this is spicy, but aside from that, this is a story about what would happen if like the villain in like the fairy tale ends up like winning, if you will. So she has, I believe, 4 books in this series. This one obviously is based on Peter Pan, Captain Hook. I'm very excited about this. I did only purchase this one, even though I believe these can be read as standalones. So there's one about Peter Pan, one about the Lion King, and I forget what the other 2 are about. I think there's one about the Wizard of Oz, and then there's a 4th book as well, but I think they can be read as standalone novels. Very excited about this. Again, I've heard the spice in this is pretty decent, and this looks to be a shorter one. It is under 350 pages. So even though and there's some like thick books that I plan to read, like Magnolia Parks, many of these are like over 500 pages, but I also have some shorter novels in here as well. Who knows how many books I'll actually get read in October. I mean, if I could read like 12, because I read 10 in September, like 12 I would be proud of myself for. I mean, if I could get through my entire list and read 15 to 18 books, I mean, like pat on the back. I don't want to like set myself up for absolute disaster and heartache and I don't reach that goal. But those are all the books on my October TBR. I would love to know, do you have any book recommendations for me? What is on your October TBR? What fall book recs do you have? I have placed an order on Amazon for like 6 to 7 books outside my comfort zone, if you will, and I feel like all of them are also really great fall books, but I'll have to push that into like November, obviously. But if you have any other book recommendations, literally of any kind, let me know like your favorite books down below, because I, again, am just having so much fun dabbling in different genres and kind of figuring out my book preferences. I'll take any and all recommendations. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.